नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय। பிறந்ததவன் தன் பிரம்ம மூலத்தே பிறந்தது எவன் நான் என்று பேணி பிறந்தான் அவனே பிறந்தான் அவன் நிதம் முனீசன் அவன் நவன் அவன் தினமும் நாடு. நோ that he alone is truly born, who, by enquiring within, from where am I born, is born in and as Brahman, the prime source. He indeed is born eternally. He is the Lord of saints. He is the ever now, ever new. Adore him. Supplement to 40 verses, verse 11. We all have read in details how Sri Bhagavan, as a youth of 16 years, went through the death experience at Madurai. We are very fortunate that Sri Bhagavan himself narrated every detail of that experience. So, please listen to Bhagavan. The body died, but with the death of the body, am I dead? Is the body I? It is silent and inert, but I feel the full force of my personality and even the voice of the I within me apart from the body. So, I am the spirit transcending the body. The body dies, but the spirit that transcends it cannot be touched by death. That means I am the deathless spirit. Having thus been established within in the ever silent spirit, the self, in 1896 itself, there was no need for Sri Bhagavan the youth either to speak with others or participate in any worldly activities during the course of the next 10 years. His life history unfolds so many changes in his outer circumstances and environments, but also emphasizes that during that period there was no change inwardly. Slowly but steadily, devotees gathered around him while Sri Bhagavan lived on the hill, holy hill Arunachala. Scholar devotees, Gambiram Seshaya, Sivaprakasam Pillai, Kavyakanta Ganapati Vini, and devout bhaktas like Parni Swami, Vasudeva Sastri, Ramanatha Brahmachari, T.K. Sundaresh Iyer, Kunju Swami arrived. On their request, Sri Bhagavan started giving his teachings by writing them initially on slates and on sand, and slowly talking and through discussions as well. His name and fame started spontaneously to spread in the midst of the common folks too. While staying at Virupaksha cave, another significant event took place in his life. In 1912, one day, Sri Bhagavan went to Pachiyamman temple to take bath in the tank there, along with Palaniswami, Vasudeva Sastri, and a few other devotees. On return after bath at the tortoise rock, on the way, in the presence of the devotees, Sri Bhagavan had his second death experience. It is very important to note that its details also were given only by Sri Bhagavan himself. At Madurai, the first death experience took place when Sri Bhagavan was alone in the upstairs room of his uncle. But this second death experience happened on the holy hill Arunachala and in the presence of the devotees. I quote Sri Bhagavan's own sacred words. After bath, we were returning by a shortcut. When we approached the tortoise rock, I felt very tired and giddy. So I sat on the rock. Suddenly, the view of the nature in front of me disappeared and got covered up like a sheet of white cloth. But the disappearance of the one and the appearance of the other took place simultaneously. Soon after, the view of nature disappeared completely and I stopped walking. I leaned on the tortoise rock. All around me was only the view of a white cloth. The circulation of blood and the beating of the heart stopped, and my body began to get dark in color, the same as what happens to a dead body. Yet, I was conscious of all those happenings around me. Even from my childhood days, I used to feel the vibrations of my heart, which resembled those of a dynamo. Here too, I was conscious of the change in my body's color, stopping of beats of my heart, of my hands and feet, getting chill, and all that was happening around me. This state lasted for 15 minutes, and thus I regained, and then I regained complete consciousness when I felt something rush from the heart on the right chest to the left chest, and that re-established life in my body. I opened my eyes, got up, and started walking. Vasudeva Sastri, whom Sri Bhagavan used to fondly address Vasu, was shocked and terrified to see the dead body of the master lying on the rock. He embraced it and cried aloud and wept profusely. Having seen the master's body dead and seeing the life principle re-emerging from it and moving normally again, Vasudeva Sastri was overjoyed. In this ecstasy, Vasudeva Sastri suddenly remembered that within 2 days, Sri Bhagavan's birthday, Punarvasu Nakshatra, was to take place. He consulted the other with great enthusiasm, the other devotees, and all of them together decided to celebrate Sri Bhagavan's birthday on a grand scale as the Sri Ramana Jayanti. When Sri Bhagavan was approached by Vasudeva Sastri over the conduct of the birthday celebration, Sri Bhagavan initially refused to be drawn into the illusion of such a celebration. Sri Bhagavan himself described as to what happened on that day later in 1947 to Suri Nagamma in letters. Sri Bhagavan says, on the first birthday celebration at Virupaksha cave in 1912, the devotees insisted on cooking and eating there as a mark of celebrating the occasion. I tried to dissuade them. They protested, what harm does it do if we cook our food and eat it here as a mark of celebrating the occasion? I left it at that. Immediately, all the devotees went to the town, bought vessels, etc., which are still here at the ashram. What began at the Virupaksha cave as a small function has resulted in all these grand paraphernalia and pomp. Everything must take its own course and will not stop. Ishwara Swami, who used to stay alone up on the hill with Sri Bhagavan periodically, was there participating in the function. He requested Sri Bhagavan, Swami, this is your birthday, please compose 2 verses. Sri Bhagavan obliged and wrote translation of the first verse, quote, you who wish to celebrate the birthday, seek first whence was your birth. One's true birthday is when one enters into that which transcends both birth and death, the eternal being. Second verse, at least on one's birthday, one should mourn one's entry into this world of samsara. To glorify it and celebrate it is like delighting in and decorating a corpse. Instead, to seek one's self and merge in the self is wisdom. This is how the birthday Jayanti celebration started. I would like to share a few anecdotes that took place during the several Jayanti celebrations of Bhagavan. In 1922, Bhagavan moved from Skandashram to this present Ramanashram. The first Jayanti at Sri Ramanashram was done January 3rd, 1923. Slowly, there were only 4 or 5 people, but slowly devotees started gathering, and in the beginning of 1930s, there would be some 20 or 25 people. And at that time, there was no electricity in the ashram. Only hurricane lamps and chimney lamps were used. So, early in the night, everyone will go to sleep. Bhagavan's hall is facing the ashram office. In between, there is the tank. So, from Bhagavan's window, office window could be seen. From office window, Bhagavan could be seen. My grandfather, Chinnaswamy, Niranjananda Swami was the Sarvadhikari, and who used to humorously say there is a wireless connection between the hall and this office. And having worked, very hard worker, Chinnaswamy, very honest, very straightforward person my grandfather was. He will go to sleep very early, that is 8 o'clock, usually. The day previous to Jayanti celebration, Bhagavan suddenly noticed, Bhagavan never looks through the window or the door. Very occasionally he turned and saw there was light, of course, hurricane light in the office. Usually when there is some difference of accounts, Chinnaswamy used to maintain, then only Chinnaswamy will be little late. But that was 11 o'clock, 11:30 in the night. Bhagavan was surprised. என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கான் பிச்சை? Bhagavan will call Niranjananda Swami Pichai. Then the attendant who was with Bhagavan ran to Chinnaswamy. Hey, Bhagavan is concerned about you are awake. He almost with a choked voice, Chinnaswamy told, it was Kunjuswamy, told him what to do. Tomorrow is Bhagavan's Jayanti. Already 30, 40, 50 people are there. There is no provisions at all for tomorrow's cooking. I am so nervous. I could not sleep. I don't know what to do. So Kunjuswamy went and told Bhagavan. Bhagavan gave a small, beautiful, spiritual smile. Devotees used to differentiate with Bhagavan, worldly smile and spiritual smile. So very eagerly when Kunjuswamy looked at Bhagavan, why? Has he lost faith in Arunachala? Has he prayed to Arunachala? Ask him to pray. Kunjuswamy went to Chinnaswamy, and Chinnaswamy, absolute obedience to Sri Bhagavan, prayed to Arunachala, got relieved from the tension, went to sleep. 2 hours afterwards, there was a knock in the office. The manager of Vettavalam Javindar came in. He said, we have brought provisions, 3 cartloads of provisions. What? Yes, this is for tomorrow's Jayanti. Our boss, Vettavalam Jamindar, her பேர் என்ன தெரியுமா? பூனக்குட்டி ஐயர். Jamindar's name. Bhagavan had appeared to him the previous night, told him, you have to provide all these along with 2 cooks. What all, you know, as a lady, what all provisions, rice, dal, vegetables, everything, oil, everything. So the manager said, we started very early in the morning, but there was a flash flood on the way, so our coming here is delayed. The next day, the celebration was happily done, and I always remember this and share it with the devotees. The important thing is, has he forgotten to pray to Arunachala? And Arunachala went in dream as Ramana Maharshi and then asked that. Very, very significant. The second reminiscence, anecdote I would like to share is, it is in the 1940s. I just want to build up. The Ramana Jayanti started grandly developing year by year by year. So, first it was less than 100 people, and then slowly it became several hundreds. And in the one of the 1940s, maybe later 1940, more than thousands people to be fed. Of course, ashram had provisions for that cooking. 20, 30 cooks would come from Tanjore district and Tiruchi district. My mother's elder brother, P.R. Nagasundaram would go and then bring them all here, attend to their needs, and attend to the cooking. People used to think he is the head cook. He was a law agent, very, very well, very well known man. The cooking was done throughout the night. Morning 2 o'clock or so, the cooking was finished. My uncle was so exhausted and tired. It was just like this. Always Jayanti time is very cold. The atmosphere, the weather will be cold. He was having only one towel. He came out just in the plain outside the kitchen, in the open space, just lie down and then slept. At 3 o'clock or 3:30, Bhagavan used to take a walk very occasionally, not every day. That day, he happened to go there. All these will look like coincidence, but the grace, you should underline, everything has connection. So when he saw Nagasundaram Iyer, very fleshy man, very, very handsome and fleshy, tall man, but only one towel, the whole body, and he was curling. Bhagavan saw that it is because of the cold. That morning, Baroda Raja had sent a woolen shawl for Bhagavan, insisting Bhagavan should use it. Bhagavan would never use all that, but he folded it and allowed it to be put on his sofa at his foot. This is how he used to respect such gifts, costly gifts, and that person who gave the gift should be also satisfied. He should have. So Bhagavan told the attendant, I don't remember the attendant's name, go and bring that shawl. So the beautiful, costly woolen shawl was brought. Bhagavan asked, cover him up. And my uncle was so fast asleep, he did not even know that. In the early morning, they all know that Baroda Maharaja had sent that woolen shawl, those who were there inside. So morning when he got up, he got so frightened that instead of trying to find out what it is, he ran to Chinnaswamy, my grandfather, because my grandfather is very strict. Said, I don't know. When I woke up, this Bhagavan shawl is on me. By that time, the attendant had gone and told Chinnaswamy. He said, hey, Nagasundaram, feel it. I am surrendering it to you. He surrendered to Chinnaswamy. He said, what a great blessing Bhagavan has done to you. Keep this as a sacred prasad from Bhagavan and take it to your puja room in Karaikudi. In the puja room, it was there. Generation after generation, it is being worshipped. The third reminiscence that I want to share is much more important. It is not on the Jayanti day that it happened. Christmas day. It was a Christmas day. Arthur Osborne's daughter, Kitty, would come here. She was staying in London when she used to come here and spend Christmas holidays. And every Christmas, without fail, we are very close friends. Friend of Sundaram also, very close, my elder brother. She used to bring a cake as a gift. Hey, you should eat it. I said, if it is not vegetarian, I won't eat. So that year, I don't remember exactly, 71 or 70, 1970. She brought a cake to the office to me. She said, "You must eat this cake today." I said, "How many times I have told you, Kitty, I won't eat this non-vegetarian cake." "Hey, brat, I have personally made this cake, vegan cake, you have to eat." That was the time when Muruganar has moved to stay within the ashram. My father had kindly permitted me and other devotees like Hugo to bring Muruganar, who was staying outside the ashram, to stay inside the ashram. And every evening Muruganar will insist that I should be with him after 5. Up to 5 office time, he permitted me to stay. Then immediately after that. So I remembered that I took this cake, ran to Muruganar. I had such great reverence for old devotees because I missed Bhagavan in the physical. I knew him only as my grandfather, not as my guru. I won't miss these old devotees whose bodies have moved with Bhagavan, my guru. So I prostrated and gave him the cake. Swami, just like me, he is also a vegan man. So he said, "This is a vegan cake. Why have you brought this, Ganesh? Today is Christmas, Swami, Jesus Christ's birthday." Ganesha, that means all over the world, Christians would be celebrating today, birthday of Jesus Christ, isn't it? Then he started sobbing and crying profusely. I didn't know what to do. Then he said, "Jesus Christ's birthday, only on Christmas, only the Christians would celebrate. A day will come, the nation, when all over the world, all people belonging to all religions, irrespective of which country, which language, which community, which religion, they will all be celebrating our Bhagavan's birthday." Then said, "I will not see that. But Ganeshan, you will see that." Proving the prophetic words of Sri Muruganar, I am happy to be alive today and to witness what and how dedicatedly my children, Aruna and Anand, this is the 4th generation, Chinnaswamy, my father, and my brother, and my brother's children, are celebrating Sri Ramana Jayanti globally through the internet. I congratulate them. All are blessed today for celebrating Sri Bhagavan's 41st Jayanti, a glorious birthday celebration for the one who was and is ever birthless and ever deathless. Yet, that is not the end of the Jayanti festivities. While rejoicing over the celebration, we should be very clear of what Sri Bhagavan himself wants us to do, not only on Jayanti, every day. In the 1940s, 2 days before Bhagavan's Jayanti celebrations, a group of devotees insisted on bringing in a lot of changes in the mode of celebrating the function, much to the disapproval of the ashram office. After they left, Bhagavan did not approve of it, but he kept silent. After they left, Bhagavan said, "Look, without minding the purpose for which they come to the ashram, they begin thinking of reforming the ashram. It is enough. They reformed themselves. One of the devotees seated in the hall very reverentially asked Bhagavan, what Sri Bhagavan wants us to do? Sri Bhagavan smilingly answered, what I like to do best is for you to ask to know who I am, who am I, and remain as I am. What is to happen will happen. What is not to happen will not happen. Is that not right? Do you now understand what Sri Bhagavan likes best? So saying, Sri Bhagavan assumed silence. It is from letters. From this, we learn that while Sri Bhagavan did give approval for the Jayanti celebrations, he gave greater emphasis on our adhering to the practice of his direct teaching of Atma Vichara and abide in the inner silence. We are all aware and are practicing the direct teaching of Atma Vichara. Yet, I am eager to share with you what Sri Bhagavan taught to one C.V. Subramanya Iyer of Chittur in 1918 at Skandashram. These are the Bhagavan's words, what I am going to quote. Bhagavan instructed him, when I come to know that I was never born, I shall never die. Death is for one who is born. I was never born, I have no body, and so I shall never die. When I am everywhere, where am I to go and where am I to come? When a man's mind is dead, he will not die again. Attain the Sushupti, deep sleep state, in the Jagrat, waking state itself, and you become a jnani. Turn the mind inward and search for the seer, and you will find that you are the seer, and that the objective world of names and forms does not exist. The mind divides itself into the subject and object, the seer and the seen. So, the outer world of names and forms has no independent existence. I am is the ruler of the mind. I am is not the mind. Most people take the mind for the self and bring misery upon themselves. The self is changeless. All changes are changes of the mind. Through avidya, ignorance, the changes of the mind are attributed to the self. All movements of the mind tend to keep you in bondage. So give up desire. Do not be dependent on anything, for you yourself are the storehouse of power and bliss. When there is a feeling of separateness, fear arises. When there is a feeling of separateness, fear arises. You should have no fear, for the self is everywhere, and you are that self. Give up everything else and keep your mind merged within in the inner silence, which is peace, which is bliss. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.